Well, the Pistons just buy out their max slots, guys. We don't get anything back. So
Or stretch them. Yeah. We
yeah,
love to stretch them.
yeah. Josh Smith. Yeah. But I do think that's an interesting point because this team, just as well, Detroit. I think this next off season, Cade's due for an extension. Believe it or not, that seems like it's come around extremely quick. And then the following off season is Ivy and Durant. So the financial aspects of this rebuild start to get really, really interesting in 12 months' time. So that's one of the reasons why. Oh, sorry, you go, Sean.
I was going to say it's good for them. They whiffed on the 2020 draft, so none of their 3 first-round picks are going to need max money. That's chess instead of checkers.
I was just going to quickly add while we're on this topic. Do we think, I guess it's only Killian and Stu, do we think either of them are offered an extension?
I think that there's going to be a Stu extension, and it's going to be high, and it's going to end up being high for a backup center that's very useful and plays a lot of minutes until he's gone.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. I think there could be a Stewart extension somewhere in the Bagley range, if not slightly higher. But I would say I'm not sure that that's necessarily an overpay with how quickly the cap's going up, and you're taking the gamble on ideally the type of player he could become as, a high level third big off the bench in a few years. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad deal or an overpay to do it. Whether he would accept that or wants to see what he's worth on the open market, I don't know. But I think that the talks are certainly likely to be happening with him, but not with Hayes.
Yeah, and I think that there's a sense where people would see an extension for Stewart, especially if he's already sort of been sent as first big off the bench and get freaked out or annoyed. But he's going to be paid as a player who could be a defensive big with some skills that could also finish games, alongside another big when those situations come up. And that's useful. So I don't think I would be freaked out if, number notwithstanding, who knows what the number will be. But if the Pistons signed Isaiah Stewart to an extension, I wouldn't necessarily freak out, even as somebody who definitely thinks he's more likely to be a backup center than anything.
For sure. I think Koo's anger here is coming at the fact we didn't mention Killian as someone who could receive an extension offer this summer, which, I don't see Killian getting an extension offer. And I think you guys hit on it. I definitely, Troy seems to be, Troy seems to have a good relationship with his players, but I could definitely see Stu, getting that extension for around, is Bagley around 12 or 14 million a season? Something like that. I could see.
It's like 12.8, I think.
Yeah, so I could see.
I think Stu theoretically is in the 12 to 15 range if they do it. And like you said, Sean, you're banking on him becoming that guy off the bench in the playoffs where he can't get switched off the court and he can shoot just enough to keep the spacing going, and you're pretty happy with it as the backup 5, 4.
To the point about Killian, I think Killian's in a position where he probably, for the extension he would be offered by Detroit because of his slow development, I don't even know if he would want to take that extension, because I think Killian's probably more in line to say, let's play out the string. I'm going to bet on myself, bet on my own development, so my next contract's a real contract instead of like hamstringing myself to a 3-year deal at a very low number because I'm one of the most inefficient guards in the NBA. Like, if he's telling himself, this is the offseason where I really lock in that 3-point shot, and as soon as he becomes a decent 3-point shooter, he's going to have the case to make, double figures a year if that happens. So he, God bless him. When it happens, I'll be happy that he signs that extension, but it needs to happen first. I don't think a team's going to sign him betting on the fact that he's going to develop into that player and then be like an underpay that they get to take advantage of.
Yeah, agreed. I was gonna say my maybe this is a spicy take, but I think Killian Hayes is far more likely to be traded this offseason than extended in any capacity. I just don't, even if they don't trade him, like you said, I don't think it makes sense for either side to look at Killian Hayes and try to extend him any additional money right now.
Yeah, I was looking at some draft stuff this past couple days, and I was starting to entertain the idea that the Pistons would be in a position to draft a point guard in the second round, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I think that kind of tells you where things are going. Now, I think that if they did that, it'd be like a shot-making point guard, so that doesn't necessarily negate Killian's immediate role on the team, but like I think it's time to think about that next phase in case and assuming Killian's probably not on the team long term. Now, that being said, I don't have a problem with Killian on this team next year as a defensive point guard who can pass really well. And beyond that, like backup point guards aren't cheap. So maybe it makes sense to keep developing them. But probably at that point, both sides are looking for the exit ramp.
For sure. I guess Koo then here says, I agree with Sean's points about Killian. Why is this not the same for Stu?
So I'm projecting what the organization thinks about Stewart more than I'm thinking like what I would do. I wouldn't necessarily be jumping up and down to offer Stewart an extension because my biggest concern with Stewart is his lack of ability to score inside, because that's what you need your backup center to do, which means if he's not doing that, he's really got to be lights out as a three-point shooter. For whatever reason, this organization really believes in that three-point shot, really overlooks his ability to score inside and loves his defense. I think that defense is pretty valuable. So I think if any of the 3 draft picks that they had was going to get extended, it was probably most likely going to be Stewart.
Yeah, I think that's where
I agree.
You go, Wes.
Go ahead, Jack.
I was just going to say, I feel like, yeah, I actually, as big a Stu fan as I am, I think this year 4, I would much prefer to see what he produces, because year 3 just felt like I would much prefer to see what he produces in year 4 than extend, as opposed to extending him this season, because I feel like year 3 was interrupted by injury. The 3-point shot was good for half the season, then wavered. Saw him do some stuff off the dribble or attacking closeouts. I think he's shown that he can be a steadying defensive presence as a switchable piece, and his rim protection's okay. His rebounding's decent. I think he's shown enough there to warrant extension, but trying to determine his overall value for a contract extension, I think, depends largely on what he produces offensively this summer. I guess next season, I guess you could say, well, if he comes out and shoots 38% from 3, shows stuff off the dribble, the regret would be you could have got him for a bargain, but this offseason, but I feel like we probably won't see that next year. So I guess that's my viewpoint on it. I would happily wait till next summer. I don't really see the rush to extend him immediately.
Yeah, I'd echo exactly what you guys are saying. I think me personally, I'd rather wait the year, especially, I think this is a really important year for Stewart's development, since they do want him to be that kind of backup 5-4, combo big. He really only got half a season doing that, right? I mean, he wasn't really fully immersed into that role until, a little bit later on. So I think a full season, having him actually fulfilling that role, if he's successful in it, I'd be personally a lot more comfortable extending him the money then. But, to your point, Sean, right? I mean, we're projecting what we think the organization might do, and of those 2, I mean, Stewart has actually been a fairly productive NBA player for roughly 2.5 years, where you cannot say the same for Killian Hayes. And he projects as at least a little bit more of a useful player. I shouldn't say that. He doesn't project as a more useful player. He projects as a player with less questions about if they can become the player they maybe could be. So I think you'd just be a little bit more comfortable with the gamble that you're taking on Stewart as compared to Hayes.
Yeah, I need Stewart to keep shooting like 8 threes a game because he's never going to be a guy that can score inside. Like, it's not in his skill set. So if he has a future, it's prolific 3-point shooting all the time with plus defense. And those are 2 ingredients for a really good NBA player. He's not there yet, and they can't extend him on blind faith. He's got to show he can do it, and that's his path to an NBA career.
Yeah, if Stu could become PJ Tucker, that would be that's the mold I see for him. I really love that comp. So
I will say though, Wes, if Killian's traded or he gets injured this year, I think people will see how much his passing is missed on this team. Like, his ability to facilitate, I think, is really underrated because people rightly focus so much on his offensive flaws, but like, he's such a high level passer and can really orchestrate an offense with pieces that aren't great. Like, he can do things on the court as a guy that can't score, surrounded by guys that can't score, and he can still make some things happen. So I think that's a really valuable NBA skill. It'll probably keep him in the league a little bit longer, no matter how his shot shakes out. But like, if he ever learns how to shoot, and you add that pass and you add that size, like, then all of a sudden you're looking at a Killian Hayes with like a 15-year career.
That, and he can do all that playmaking next to another really good playmaker too. I mean, that's not easy to do, to be able to do both, right? Orchestrate the offense on your own and also play off somebody, act as a secondary initiator, and still look pretty good as a passer, as he did the year before with rookie Cade. So I mean, yeah, absolutely. Him as a passer is a very bankable skill that would be missed if you don't directly replace it.
But you can't be an NBA player and be a 44% true shooting percentage guy. Like, it doesn't work. So he's just got to get better. He's got to develop a consistent shot eventually.